Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor, too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall. It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast presented by Alumni Hall, your source for officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family. Please visit Alumni Hall at alumnihall.com or at their Tallahassee store located at 1817 Thomasville Road. My name is Pat Burnham, host of Seminole Sidelines, and joining me today to discuss FSU's 28-14 loss to NC State are Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, managing editor Bob Ferrante, recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein, and former FSU offensive lineman and college football coach Mark Salva. But before we get started today, I want to remind our Osceola subscribers to log on to the Osceola and click on the Alumni Hall ad to sign up for your 20% discount code to apply to your online purchases this holiday season. All right, guys, it was a very busy week at Florida State last week on the field and off the field. But what I want to start with was just talk about the lost to NC State 28-14. Obviously, FSU was impacted by some availability issues during the week and at the game, but just want to start with your overall assessment of the performance. Jerry, I'll start with you.
I was actually surprised we played the game. So let's start there. I mean, there was very serious question with 40 guys out last week whether or not they were going to be able to play a game, period. And then I was, once you come into the game with that perspective, you know, I remember when I came into the ball game, I looked down there on the field to see which linemen we had, if any, that were going to play on Saturday. And so I came in with very low expectations.
Yeah, and just to be clear for our listeners, there were 40 players that missed parts of practice or the game, but when the game hit, FSU had all its defensive starters, healthy or not, and they had all but two of their offensive starters.
Not actually. They had two missing from the offense. They had
Dylan Gibbons and Jordan Travis missing from the offense, but they had everybody else on the two deep outside of Lawrence Toafili, and the same thing for the defense. But to your point, they did miss parts of practice.
They missed a bunch of practice. Yeah. I mean, I think you saw in that game that Smith was not close to healthy. You know, you had Brady Scott at one guard. Most of the guys that started Saturday had missed Tuesdays and Wednesdays practice.
Oh yeah, so, but I'm just trying to clarify that we weren't without 40 guys on Saturday afternoon. That's all.
No, those guys sucked it up and came out there and played the game. Now, some of them, you know, were struggling with, still had the funk.
Yeah.
You don't shake that stuff, as you well know. You've been experiencing it for a few days. But at any rate, so I came in with low expectations.
Well, Mark, I do want to ask you that question. You played 4 or 5 years at Florida State and obviously coached for 5 years at South Carolina and for 3 years at Florida State. I want to ask you, A, did you ever have the experience of playing very ill? And B, did you ever have a player coach for a team that had this kind of flu bug run through it? And what kind of obstacles does that create?
No, I've never missed a game because of illness. I mean, I've played with, you know, like everybody else with, you know, hurt ankles and shoulders and stuff like that, but nothing like an illness. And I can't recall ever having an issue. I mean, we maybe had one guy out because of the flu before, but never a wholesale roster, you know, shakeup due to an illness like that. And I get that they were available on Saturday, but like Jerry said, I heard this too, I mean, from you guys especially, that practice was compromised on Tuesday and Wednesday, which are your big days. Those are the days where you put the game plan in, you rehearse the game plan, you put them through, the tough situations and you coach off film. I mean, it's so important. And especially with us where the margins are so small, where we have to be at peak efficiency in everything that we do because of where we are talent-wise. And the fact that 40 guys this summer all of practice Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm like, Jerry, I went into the game I knew what I was going to see based on that alone. And I was not surprised at all. That's what we got. And that's not an excuse, but it is a reason. Right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so, I mean, I hate to say give him a pass. I mean, you don't like to lose and all that, and you have to deal with it. But obviously, we're not the only program in the state dealing with it, right? I mean, and I was not shocked at what we got.
When you don't practice, what happens? You don't execute. And I mean, if you could not practice and play well, why in the world would you practice and sustain injury at practice?
Oh, hey, back in the day, if you didn't practice Tuesday or Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday, you didn't play. You didn't even dress out.
Right.
I don't think they had this option based on the numbers, right? I mean, they
of course we don't. No, we don't have that option.
No, they didn't have. I mean, who are you going to play on the offensive line? I mean, who would you play at center? Who would you play at left tackle? So Washington had to play. Smith had to play. I mean, and now what happens if you haven't practiced during the week and you get to the fourth quarter? Conditioning becomes a factor.
Yeah, I agree to some extent on that, but I will say this. I think conditioning becomes a factor because of the illness, not because they haven't practiced that particular week. They've been in off-season conditioning since the end of spring ball. They've been through summer conditioning. These guys should be able to miss a practice or two and still operate.
You guys have had viruses before.
If they're healthy.
You fought a virus all week. You're going to be fatigued going in.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you could miss a practice and still not lose all your stamina unless you're sick. I guess that's my point.
Yeah. But they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, Bob, your thoughts on the game?
Okay, I'm going to set aside availability issues. What drives me nuts watching some of these games, and it's the story of the last few years with these guys. The wide receiver drops just drive you nuts, and you can't build drives around it. And on a day when you don't have Jordan Travis and you don't have Dylan Gibbons, and running the ball against the best run defense in the ACC is going to be hard, you got to catch the ball. And I understand that some guys are out there and they probably had the flu bug and they're probably well under 100%. But the volume of drops I thought was just beyond what we've seen probably all year. And this was a wide receiver group that didn't have any at North Carolina. We saw how they function when they catch the ball and the offense can click. And when you need the passing game to just give you something, it just didn't feel like the receivers, either they were sick, lost focus, or something. Mackenzie Milton throws a different ball than Jordan Travis. We have a lot of reasons maybe out there. We'll never really know the real one. Maybe it's a combination. But it just felt like the receivers had opportunities and it just didn't come through.
Yeah, there were more drops than I can remember for sure at any game this season. I'd have to go back and watch all of them to figure it out. But yeah, I think, listen, there were certainly some shortcomings on both sides of the ball. Florida State has struggled mightily, either with its starting offensive line and its starting quarterback to run the ball against Clemson, and without one of its starting offensive linemen and without its starting quarterback to run the ball against NC State. Now, maybe the tonic for that is coming to town and Manny Diaz, 85th ranked total defense, and Jordan Travis coming back. But before we move on to that, I do want to talk about, where does Florida State go when it struggles to run with either quarterback? I mean, what do you do, Mark, on offense when you can't run the ball against a good defense? And as you guys said, it doesn't matter who's been at quarterback the last 2 weeks, the passing game has struggled.
Well, you got to have an equalizer. Either you run the option or you throw the football, right? I mean, that's the answer to complement the running game. So if you can't throw the ball, then you're in a whole lot of trouble. And that's obviously we have issues throwing the football with their current quarterbacks. You scheme up a bunch of screens and a bunch of intermediate throws. I mean, we did some of that, but to Bob's point, we had a lot of drops too. I mean, I don't know what you do, Pat, if you can't throw the ball or run the option, or I don't know what else there is, to complement the running game, then you're in trouble. And I don't know how many throws did Milton have. I mean, he had a
44.
Yeah, that's not a recipe for us to win the game. There's no way, especially with the current receiving core and look, I love McKenzie, great kid, but he obviously is struggling right now creating velocity on the ball. And that's just not a good place for us to be right now. Our best chance to win is Jordan Travis doing what we've been doing. That's with the current group of players that we have. That's our best chance to win football games. And I'm not opposed. I mean, look, you put 8 in a box, I'm confident there's a way to scheme running the ball. But if that's all you can do, if you don't keep them honest somehow, you got an issue.
Yeah, that's my concern is they're not going to find that balance regardless of who's lining up at quarterback after the last 2 weeks. Fish, what are your thoughts on the NC State?
The zone. But when we do the zone reads and the RPOs, that's in essence is the option, right? That's what it is. You're reading either BFC got defender and putting the ball in his foot, pulling it and running it, throw it to the edge if you're not going to run it. I mean, that's your equalizer. So Jordan not being able to throw the ball, efficiently downfield 40 times, that's not Jordan Travis. But him running those zone reads and RPOs is the equalizer. So we can win ball games with him doing that. And we have. When we're hitting on all cylinders and we're keeping guys off balance with that stuff, that's our best offense. It just is.
Fish, your thoughts on the game and particularly how the offense performed?
Just another disappointing performance. The frustrating thing is that there's no consistency, and a lot of that comes because they don't have the ability to create the big plays. I think teams, as you guys know, as coaches get more and more film on Florida State and they see how to scheme against them, I don't think they're very difficult to scheme against. I do think they're more difficult with Jordan in there, like Mark said, because he has the ability that if he does hold and tuck it, that he has the ability to take it the distance. So that opens up the other two guys to be able to run. But the reality is the other running backs aren't that big of game breakers. So if Jordan's not in there, it's easier to scheme and shut them down. And they don't have a passing attack pretty much past 10 or 15 yards. So they become an in-the-box offense, and it makes it easier and easier for these defensive coordinators, especially at Clemson and NC State, where they have better defenses than we've seen most of the season. And that's the most difficult thing is their offense is very limited. And unless, Jordan and Jordan, I kind of compare him to that shooter in basketball that gets a layup early in the game or gets a free throw, and then they start shooting threes later in the game. Jordan needs something positive early in games. And then when he has that happen, it seems like his game's better. The whole offense is better. But when he gets shut down early, it just seems when he's in the game, even they don't take it to another level. So I don't really know what they can do. I talked to you guys before we got on this podcast. I think the coach's hands are tied. They literally probably look at that play sheet and they're like, all right, which play can run? This play's worked a million times for us. And the results when they run it here with these guys, it's a lot less when they run it with other guys that probably aren't even as talented. So,
all right. Well, I do. Before we move over to the defense, I want to wrap this up on NC State pretty quickly. Let's talk about something that's not illness or referee related. Let's talk about the 4th down decision in the 4th quarter by Mike Norvell to go for it on 4th and 4 from his own side of the field. I believe it was the 44-yard line. I'm trying 43-yard line. 8:16 left to go in the game, down by a touchdown, and your defense is playing really well. He decides to go for it, and for at least the 3rd time this year, they're unable to convert in a close game, and the opposition scores an immediate touchdown on their next series.
I'm jumping in first.
All right,
I can't stand these 4th down calls. You punt the damn ball. I just don't. I understand analytics and these sheets these coaches all go off. Ever since I spoke to somebody last year that told me, "Oh, you have to go for a fourth down," or 2 years ago when Willie started going for it. Ever since Willie and Mike Norvell have gone for four, I haven't seen them convert one yet when it matters. It's like, all right, I get it. The stat sheet tells you it's okay. But in that situation, punt the ball, your defense is playing well, and just maybe you flip the field and all of a sudden the next possession, you have a short field or you get them on a turnover or something positive. But once you give up that ball in your side of the field and you let them just waltz down the field and score, it's demoralizing. I don't know. I'm just so tired of seeing them go for it on fourth down. I could understand inside the other team's 30, 33, and you're not real comfortable with the punter. You're not giving up a whole lot if you have to punt there or turn the ball over. But when you're inside your own territory, it's mind-boggling how many times they've gone for it, and I haven't seen them make it yet.
Well, listen, and I know hindsight's 2020, but I was sitting right next to Bob during the game, and I said, this is a mistake. I said, there's no way they should be doing this, and I'm not paid to coach the team, and I don't want to be paid to coach the team unless they pay me. But my point is this. There's a difference between being aggressive and being aware of your situation. You're 5 of 17 on fourth down opportunities this year. You either don't know your team or you don't understand the situation.
Well, when the situation came up, these are the thoughts that went through my head. How many more possessions are we going to get, right? And what's our best chance to put points on the board? Because we need at-bats, right? And so is my best chance to get points right now to extend this drive or to kick the ball and let my defense play?
One of the best weapons on this football team is that punter. And you should.
That's my point. That's my point, Pat.
Yeah.
That's my point. You know, that thought went through my head. I'm sure those thoughts, similar thoughts went through his head. What's my best chance, you know, how many possessions I have left to get the points I need? And, you know, to me, the best answer was punt the ball. My defense is playing well. You know, we could possibly flip the field and maybe get another shot. But, you know, time and possession started becoming a factor. And, you know, Mike rolled the dice and he came up, you know, snake eyes on that. And that was, I didn't agree with it at the time either, you know, because I thought our best chance was to kick it and let the defense play. But
well, listen, I'm a fan of Mike Norvell. I think he's got the program going in the right direction, but I disagree with this call. You got 8:16 left on the clock. The NC State has not driven the ball on you all game long for any extended period. You think you're going to get the ball back at least once. But I digress. Bob, what was your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I didn't like the decision, but at the same time, you had to like the onside kick, go for it, coming out of halftime decision. I mean, it just showed major cojones, you know, from Coach Norvell to go for it and try to make a play that sparked your team. I think historically, when I look back at Memphis and what Norvell did on fourth down, and they were converting 58%, 64%, 55%, 59% on fourth down. It kind of shows me that they had good play calls on fourth down. They had personnel to execute it. Here at Florida State, they don't have the personnel to execute it. It's fourth and long. It's just not situationally within the flow of the game working. I'd love to see Norvell punt and pin in that situation, and you hope that the defense comes up with a stop. But I would say historically, we have to admit that Norvell has rolled the dice, has been successful at Memphis.
Yep.
Well, and you know, the other thing is too, with an offensive coach, you know, sometimes they have a tendency not to consider the defense as part of the game. You know, for me, you know, I'm speaking as an offensive coach, but for me, defense is part of your team. You know, you got to give them a chance to win the game too. You know, It's not all about the offense. But anyway, sorry.
I was going to add to what Bob said. The other factor at Memphis was he wasn't facing defensive teams like there are in the ACC. I mean, there's some solid defensive teams in this conference.
Nobody plays defense in that conference, that American conference.
All right, so does that make the decision better or worse?
It's worse.
What I'm saying is I was surprised that he punted. I mean, that he went for it. I mean, we're all in agreement. That's not the right call in that situation. But I got thinking about it. I've been thinking about this since the beginning of the year. I remember, you know, in the Bowden era, when we weren't very good, Bobby was the riverboat gambler. And I wrote it in my column that in 90, when we tried that fumble Ruski mark at
Auburn,
a couple of those coaches that came out of the box were furious about that call. And we quit with gambling after that call. We let the players win the game because we knew we had superior players. And I think that what might be in Norval's head is he sees what we see at practice. He sees we're not very talented. And I think you get, when you're an offensive coach, you start getting, you get a little itchy with the dice and you start throwing them too often.
That's fair. So I get it.
I mean, you're trying to manufacture a possession. To Bob's point, we had done nothing the first half. We come out there and try an onside kick. Let's be frank, our special teams haven't been very special this year.
They have not.
And if they'd have recovered it, they'd have had it at our 43-yard line. Now it's different.
Starting with the first play of the game, again for the second time at home, you bring a kickoff 5 yards out of the end zone and lose 5 yards right off the bat to start the game. Hey, at least it wasn't UMass and we didn't lose the ball. But yeah, there are some baffling decisions on special teams.
So let me go back to the point, though, that I was trying to make is that he took a chance. He rolled the dice. That's a gamble. I don't think it's situationally as clear as when there's 8 minutes left. But the momentum was such that if they'd have gotten that ball, he'd have been crucified for that onside kick. But we get it. And so people dismiss it. And it leads to 2 quick touchdowns, momentum swing. So when we talk about him rolling the dice and coming up snake eyes, he was 2 for 4 in that game on 4th down, and he had the onside kick. So 3 out of 5 gambles went in his direction.
But let me ask
you. The difference in the onside kick and the going for it on 4th down is you're down by 14 coming out of the half. You're in one possession game when you decide not to punt.
They were down 14-0 and nothing was going right at that point. So they had nothing to lose. The second time it's a 4th down call, you're down by 7 and you're trying to stay within the number and all of a sudden you give up.
I agree. Situationally, I agree. They're different situationally.
He went for 4th down on the goal line down there, right? Yeah. We scored a touchdown on 4th down.
Yeah.
So we went for it there too. So it's easy to sit here and second guess, but Oh,
and I've said that from the get-go. We're lucky. We're the last people with the pen in our hand.
Yeah.
We're the last people with the pen in our hand. So, all right. So enough about that. We can argue about this all day. We can go back and pull up every 4th down, which I almost did. I did pull up Notre Dame and Louisville, but I didn't get into all of them. I just know that there was some strange timing of these decisions. But anyway, all right. I want to go to the defense. I want to give everybody, listen, the defense, in my opinion, has gotten better as the year goes on. Particularly the front has been stout all year. The secondary continues to get better. Unfortunately, one of the bugaboos of this team, not just under Mike Norvell, but also in Willie's last year, was the propensity to give up huge plays in the passing game. Florida State only gave up 4 pass plays over 20 yards NC State, which was exactly what NC State was averaging, but 3 of those went for touchdowns. Other than that, I thought the defense played really well. Obviously, as we've already stipulated, there were some health issues with the team, so forth and so on, but they did play the game. So talk a little bit about your overall impressions of the defense, and Fish, I'll let you start.
I think the defense has been, like I said before, Fuller's taken a lot of heat over the last year and a half. And I think the defense actually has kept them in a lot of these games, kept them in this game. It could have got out of hand. This was another game that, it seemed like NC State jumped out in front quickly, but they didn't let them get too far away where they couldn't have a puncher's chance. Like the defense kept them within fighting distance the whole game and gave them a chance to get to the 4th quarter and win the games. And they've done their job. Yeah, they're kind of a bend but don't break defense. They give up yards, but they don't give up the big plays this year. You don't see the breakdowns like they had in years past, the last couple of years. I think the defense is probably the reason a lot of these games have been a lot closer than they should be, considering that the offense just doesn't give them a whole lot, So I'm fine with the defense. Yeah, you'd like to have an elite defense, but with what they have, the personnel and everything, they don't have great linebackers. This is a team that actually, I think, on defense has exceeded my expectations of what they would be this year.
I do want to ask whoever wants to answer this question can. We saw Emmett Rice get better last year as the season went on, and really it was one of the things that really made me think the team was buying into Mike Norvell, which is not the point of this comment. But one of the guys I do see getting better, at least than he was earlier in the year, was Amari Gaynor. Does anybody else see that in what's going on with Florida State's defense? Bob?
Yeah, I think Amari's a big piece of the puzzle. I'm excited to see Emmett Rice back if he does make it back on the field against Miami. I think Norvell is saying in a limited capacity. It does feel like players are, because of continuity reasons, playing better, understanding what the guy next to him should be doing. The big thing with the defensive backs, though, this week was just can't have that kind of turnstile arm tackle from Akeem Dent where you're just not putting in enough effort there. And we don't know if he had the flu playing through issues that we just don't know about.
Sure.
But everybody in the stadium kind of looks at that play and says, wow, that's a really tough one to watch because it hurts. It really does hurt.
Yeah. Mark, just your thoughts on the defense real quickly, then we're going to move on to something that we don't have to put an asterisk next to.
Yeah, pretty much what everybody said here. Dent has made some bone-crunching tackles here. He has made some tackles, and he missed that one. He took a bad angle and let it look bad. They scored on 2 long passes, but 2 of them were screens. The first one was a blown coverage, pure and simple. And you know what? They didn't do it again after that. And that was definitely a blown. But I'm gonna tell you, watching our run defense being so much better. I mean, they did not generate anything in the running game of any consequence, and that was really good to see. And you ask any defensive coordinator, what's the first thing they say in a meeting on Sunday? It's, we got to stop the run, and we've gotten so much better at that. I see progress, to whoever made the point, I can't remember who it was, but you see more continuity and understanding in the scheme. You see guys making checks, you see guys going motion, guys communicating real well and rotating coverages and all that stuff. I mean, I see improvement, and it was a bad day. Look, this whole game was just a bad day. Some ugly things that we hadn't seen in a while showed up again, and it just was.
All right. Well, listen, obviously there's a lot of gray area in the NC State game on the field on Saturday because of all the aforementioned issues we've talked about. But it really got to be, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because the kid's not here anymore. And if you're not here, there's not really to talk about you. But we did not get it. This happened after we taped our podcast last week. Chubba Purdy announced that he was leaving the team on, I guess, Tuesday or Wednesday, and he entered the transfer portal and and left the team immediately. Certainly, there's a school of thinking that he might have even started, or at the very least played in the game against NC State. Fish, you're in that recruiting world. I think we're only going to see – I think this is going to be a crazy season for the transfer portal with all the coaching changes that are going to take place this year. We haven't even got started on that, but just tell me a little bit about what you think led to Chubba Purdy's decision not only to transfer, but to miss the final 4 games of the season, which I think was short-sighted on his fault, on his side at the very least, and possibly Florida State's. But I don't know all the circumstances that played into his leaving. My belief is that it was playing time related, as most of these cases are. But give me your take on what happened.
I just don't get it. I'm gonna just be honest. I mean, their quarterback room, Milton's been injured. Travis can't stay on the field. This kid has to understand, or should have understood. I don't know if they just didn't communicate with them, that in the next 2 weeks, they have 4 games left, that if they lost 1 or 2 of these next 4 games and lost the next 2 in a row, My guess is Norvell would have probably just pulled the plug on the rest of the season and let this kid play the last 2 or 3 weeks. It just seems like a bad move. I mean, he was going to have a good opportunity to play in these last 4 games. It would have got him a jump start on the starting job for next year. I don't believe Jordan Travis that Mike Norvell and the staff could run him back next year. I believe they have to have a new quarterback. I don't care if it's the transfer portal or if it was Purdy. I don't believe, as much as a fan I am of AJ Duffy, I don't believe that a freshman's going to come in here. Duffy had a great opportunity to start spring football being the number 1 guy if he had just come in and shown a pulse in these last 4 games. And why leave now? Like, what made that decision? Who in his inner circle was in his ear and told him this was a smart idea? I don't know who did.
Well, even if you're leaving, which is fine to do, it's your option. You should leave if you don't want to be somewhere. He would have certainly been, he would have given the inconsistency of Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton's health on a regular basis. There's a good enough chance that Purdy would have played somewhere along the way, even if he would have wanted, even if he decided to transfer. That would have benefited him a hell of a lot more than sitting in his dorm room for the next 4 weeks, finishing up before finals. Mark, what's your take on this? I don't understand it for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, like everybody else, I was just really disappointed in that decision, not understanding what the circumstances were, or whatever it is that he came to arrive at this decision. You know, I think back to, you know, when my senior year, we had Danny McManus, and then you had Brad Johnson, Casey Weldon, Peter Tom Willis, Chip Ferguson, all in the quarterback room, right? None of those guys played until they were juniors or seniors. I go back to that picture Mark Richt used to have in his office, right? Mark Richt had that picture in his office. He had Bernie Kosar, Vinny Testaverde, him, Jim Kelly, and Kyle Vanderway. I mean, can you imagine if those guys all transferred because they didn't play? You know, I mean, the position is the toughest position in sports, and it's also the most prosperous position in sports.
Mark,
and yeah,
I hate to interrupt you. We don't even have to go back that far. You could go back to last year. All right, Mac Jones came in with Tua and these other guys, and he was a 5th-year senior that won a national title with Alabama. He bided his time because he understood the opportunity that would come eventually. And look at that. It was last year. This isn't 15, 20 years ago. This was last year in a team that's loaded with players. Kids can leave whenever they want. And this kid sat, learned, and now became a first-round pick and won a national title. I don't know. It's very disappointing.
It is. It's short-sighted, and it's, to me, and it lacks maturity in understanding the situation, what it takes to be an elite quarterback. To me,
yeah. Listen, I think it probably had to. I think this is a layered conversation at the end of the day. If we ever really found out the truth, I mean, obviously he was not at practice some last year when he was deemed to be hurt. We hear about the mental reps coaches deemed so important when a kid is hurt, but Chubba was not at practice some of the time he was injured. To me, that was telling. So I think this whole thing has been a little sideways, even going back to last year. But listen, the perfect example that you could use for Chubba would, had he stuck it out and all of a sudden he's playing on Saturday, does he prove himself to be FSU's version of Alex Van Dyke, who's now the starting quarterback at Miami, who was not supposed to play this year because De'Aaron King was supposed to be the starter throughout the year. De'Aaron King gets hurt much earlier in the season, but what Alex Van Dyke did was establish himself as Miami's quarterback of the future. We'll never know about Chubba because he didn't give himself that opportunity, or the program didn't give him that opportunity. I don't know which, or maybe it was a joint decision. But I think I agree with Mark. I think I said it perfectly, short-sighted. Jerry and Bob, I'll give you all a chance to weigh in on Chubba.
I think the coaches were more disappointed than any of us. They had invested a great deal of time in him. You know, when you have your top 2 quarterbacks, as you said, Pat, are hurt or they're sick, or, you know, those 2 guys missed a lot of practice this year. I'm talking about Travis and Milton. And in each case, the fill-in was Chubba Purdy. Our coaches invested an enormous amount of time in him, and we saw the progress. I mean, he looked good in October, and I think they're extremely disappointed. Now, the only good thing about him leaving, getting out of here now, is that Rodemaker is now going to get those reps. So they'll get a good chance the next 3 to 4 weeks to really evaluate Rodemaker with the ones and twos.
Just remember, in 2023, you're starting quarterback for Florida State.
Hey, Fish, I'm curious, Fish, is there a quarterback out there that we can jump on to kind of fill that gap?
What's crazy, I spoke to somebody about this kid. There's a kid, he's not a senior graduate transfer, but he could go in the portal, is Michael Pratt, who's at Tulane. He's a Boca Raton graduate. I think he'd be a great fit. If you go watch his footage against Oklahoma earlier this year, I think he's banged up a little bit, so he's not playing for Tulane. But I think there's options out there. You got the kid at Oklahoma. I know Spencer Rattler has struggled a little bit. I think the kid, I just saw Keydon Clovis, the quarterback at USC, who I watched him as a freshman. I thought he was good. There's going to be options. They have to land one of these grad transfers, because if they roll out Jordan Travis next year and they can't win 5 or 6 games, they got to get to 8. I think 7 is a low end. They got to get to 8 wins next year and win some of these 50-50 games they haven't, because at some point the fans and people around the program, you can only have so many moral victories in close games. Eventually you got to win, and the only way they're going to do that is if they improve the quarterback position. They have to do.
Fish, this question is actually open to anybody. I've heard some talk about the Tennessee transfer quarterback at Florida State showing some interest. He's entered the portal. I can't remember his name.
The Harrison Bailey kid, he looked very good in their spring game. Now, I know it's a spring game, but he's another one. They don't need great. They just need competent. I mean, they need a guy that could go out there and make some simple plays in the passing game and actually help the offense look functional. I mean, Norvell's a very good coach. He needs a signal caller that could frickin' make plays for him.
Hey, I want to ask this question to all of you. Do you think perhaps, and we'll never know, this is just conjecture, but that's why you have a damn pod and talk football. It's a conversation between 5 football fans. Do you think maybe Chubba was under the impression or knew that they were bringing in a transfer quarterback, and that played into the decision?
It could have been. I mean, they may have already been talking to somebody, and maybe word got out to this kid that, hey, you know what? Realize that Keydon Clovis kid who's from USC, he's an Arizona kid. Spencer Rattler's an Arizona kid. Dillingham has connections to those kids in Arizona. So maybe Chubb is from Arizona. Maybe they already knew that they were going after one of those guys, approached FSU about it. And you don't know behind closed doors what happens. You don't know who they're talking to. Trust me, I can't imagine Norvell's gone through this whole season and said, oh, we're fine running back these quarterbacks next year. They've seen Purdy in practice. If they were, they know that, like, hey, we need a quarterback. And I just think that they're like, you know what, if we could go out and find one that's a fresh, one that's already performed at the college level and been productive, or, I mean, even the Harrison Bailey kid, like I said, at Tennessee, if you watched him in his spring game, I'd take him right now at Florida State. I know that kid can do things we haven't seen this year. And that's a frustrating thing. I think you go back to Jordan a little bit, and I'll keep it short. Jordan's such a great kid. We all cheer for him. He's the anti these quarterbacks where they were super talented, whether it's an Xavier Lee or one of these guys that came in here that was super talented and didn't do the things the right way. You want Jordan to succeed. He's limited. He just is what he is. He's probably, honestly, a group of 5 type quarterback that should be playing in the MAC. And Florida State's trying to win. And you go watch it, Norvell's offenses that he's had good signal callers, guys that can push the ball down the field. He likes to take a lot of deep threats, deep passes. He can't do that. And their offense probably is only running a quarter of the playbook. And until he gets that signal caller in, we're going to keep having these discussions each week why they're coming up short.
Yeah. Listen, and we're not taking any away from Jordan. We all, I think, agree that
he's a great kid.
FSU's most dynamic player and a warrior on the football field. He's fun to watch play. So I don't know why I feel the need to say that every time we talk about him. It's probably because I get accused of not being a Jordan Travis fan, and that's absolutely not true.
We're all Jordan Travis.
Yeah,
How can you not be a fan of his? I mean, the kid's a hard worker. He's gone through a lot. We all like him, but at the end of the day, this is a business.
We love him because he gives his all to the program.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
And hey, you know what? I'll ride with that guy.
Yeah. Mark, let me just interrupt in here. I want Bob to give his little 30-second talk about the pieces around the quarterback at Florida State.
I was just going to say the quarterback is about the right guy who's the right fit for what Norvell wants to run. But in the end, the discussion needs to go to who are the supporting cast? Who are the offensive linemen blocking? Who are the receivers catching? Who are the tight ends blocking and catching? We've had this discussion for years between DeAndre and James Blackman and Jordan and all the guys on the current roster and even Chuba is now left. But we got to see some solutions as far as the supporting cast, or we're just going to keep having this discussion, I think, week after week and kind of banging our heads against the wall.
Well, and I think we all agree on this. Those solutions next year or this recruiting cycle are more than likely going to be found in the portal and not in the high school signees. Fish, I want to get into some recruiting, but since Bob brought it up, I got 32 scholarships to give this year. How many go to, if you had to guess, how many go to portal guys?
I mean, at least 10, I would think. I think they need to go get a big time running back. They're not going to fix every problem, but the one thing Mike Norvell's shown, especially with the two running backs they have, that he can get a running game going. So if you give him that one piece, a running back, a Trey Saunders, for example, who's at Alabama right now, and he's like 4th or 5th on the depth chart. In the opener against Miami, he has bursts that none of the backs at Florida State have right now. So if Norvell, who has shown he can run the ball, can get at least a playmaker at running back, I think that wins you an extra 2 games. You're sitting at, instead of 3-5, whatever, or 3 and whatever they're sitting at, you may be 500 right now. You probably would have won, one of the other games, whether it was the Notre Dame game or even the NC State game or the Clemson game. They probably would have won at least 1 or not 2 of those games if they had a better running back that could take the ball the distance at any time. The other positions are going to come. They're going to have to go out and get guys. Listen, top flight receivers aren't going to come to Florida State if they don't have a quarterback. I mean, they go hand in hand. They're not going to want to go play for Jordan Travis. So I think it'd be easier to get that running back spot first taken care of, try and fill one hole than to fill every hole. But I mean, I think high school kids if they get the Kevin Coleman kid from Missouri, from St. Louis, maybe he could give them some big plays. That you don't have to teach them the whole playbook. Just teach them a freaking 9 route, tell them to run deep, and maybe he could stretch the field. They just need playmakers. Bring some guys in that could just flip the field, change. You see it. Look at Jalen Knight. Jalen Knight was committed to Florida State. You look at what he's done. He had a 1-play run last week against Pittsburgh for a touchdown. 1 play. I mean, and you could go, oh, well, what's his name? Javon Corbin had it against Notre Dame. He doesn't have the ability to do that on every single play. That's what that kid has. That changes. It makes your offense more intimidating. It makes play calling a lot easier when you have that guy that can just change the game on 1 play. And I think the running back spot is where they need to focus.
All right. Well, listen, that's a great segue into our next conversation. We need to move south, Florida State. And I don't want to get into we could talk all day about Florida State, Miami, the rivalry. Just want to talk a little bit about the fact that all right, first of all, 3 weeks ago, I think we all thought Miami was a win, right? I mean, Miami was struggling. Manny's catching heat from everybody, including the AD who releases a more than a non-positive statement about his tenure. So they come in here, they're 4-5, 5-4. I think they're 5-4. Need 1 win to go to a bowl. this game, 2 of the last 3 years, if you include this year, has decided a coach's fate. A lot of people think it's going to decide Manny's fate on Saturday. But to go back to the on-the-field matchup, Florida State has struggled on offense. Is the Miami defense the tonic for Florida State's offensive woes the last 2 weeks? Mark, I'll start with you. They're ranked 85th in total defense. Coming into this game, have been in shootouts the vast majority of the season. How do you see this working out for Florida State's offense this week?
Well, all things being equal, I looked at the depth chart and it looks like we got everybody back. If we're hitting on all cylinders, if our offense is hitting at peak efficiency like it has a few times this year, yeah, we can win this game. We can score some points and be productive. To your point, can Miami be the tonic for that? Absolutely, I think so. We played 2 really, really good defenses these last 2 weeks. This may seem like a breather as compared to those 2, honestly.
It probably will.
And I hope it does. Plus, we have it at home, and that adds an extra layer to the atmosphere and everything that goes into this game. But look, I have confidence in this first group of guys, anyways, that they can execute at a level good enough to win this game and score some points. So to answer your question, yes.
All right, Fish, you're kind of our de facto Miami expert.
Yeah, I mean,
you probably know every kid on that roster.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about the Miami defense.
Well, it wasn't very good early in the year, but what they've done is they've gone to the more talented kids. James Williams, who was a 5-star safety, is now playing. Avante Williams, who was suspended the first 4 games for a situation he was in. He had an unbelievable interception. Cameron Kitchens, Leonard Taylor, their top players that everybody on their fan bases were clamoring for are starting to play now, and they're playing at a higher level. Personally, for Florida State to have a legit shot, I believe they're going to have to take some chances on special teams, block a punt. They're going to either have to return a kick for a touchdown. They can't just
fourth down a couple times.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just saying, like, they're going to have to create things, a block punt early in the game. You know how that is. I mean, it happened a few years ago. I remember going to the game, the Miami FSU game down at the stadium, and Florida State jumped on Miami early. And that was a game that Florida State was not favored in. They weren't supposed to even be in it. And I think they were up 28-7 at halftime. They got a touchdown by DJ Matthews. They need to create, like, literally they need to empty the dump truck in this game, whatever that, because I truly believe this. If Norvell can win this game, forget of the rest of the year, it could make a big difference, not only in recruiting, but the feeling around the program. It's a huge game, in my opinion.
All right. Well, since you've talked about recruiting, there are more than just a couple, but there are 2 prospects in town for official visits this weekend. Travis Hunter, who has reaffirmed his commitment to Florida State time and time and time again, almost to the point it makes me nervous. And then you have Marvin Jones Jr., who will be in town with his famous father, Marvin Jones Sr., the original Shade Tree. How big is this game in the recruitment of everyone they have? I think Daughtry's coming this weekend from Miami. I think this is his official visit weekend, the offensive lineman. How big a game is this from a recruiting standpoint?
It's big for the uncommitted kids. I think the kids that are committed, I think that Norvell and those guys did a good job early on explaining what was going to happen this year. If you read their reactions after every game, they've been steady. The most of the kids that they recruited and got commitments from have not really wavered. I know they had 1 or 2 decommitments, but those were kids that you probably expected it from. The majority of the group they have committed, I think, strong. Marvin Jones Jr., they need to solidify him this weekend. He is such a key. I can't stress enough. And people could go, oh, it's only 1 recruit. I've heard that before. Oh, it's only 1 recruit. No. This guy's father, I'm going to say it one more time, his locker room is enclosed in glass at Florida State. He's a 2-time All-American. He is the most important recruit for Mike Norvell and this staff. They have to sign him, period.
They need to do the whole jersey retirement ceremony over again at halftime.
Exactly. I don't care what they got to do.
Whatever they need.
All right.
By the way, I did text with Marvin today, and he will be here, so I can't wait to catch up with Shade Tree. That'll be fun.
Well, name another tree after his son, Junior, or something. I don't know.
Well, it's got to be taller than Marvin because he is much taller than Marvin. He's more like a pine tree. I mean, he's like 6'6", 6'7".
Oh, it'd have to be an oak tree being Tallahassee.
There we go, oak tree.
Whatever. Name him whatever the kid wants.
We'll name any tree after him. You're right. We'll give him any name he wants. I agree. All right, listen, let's move over to I'm still stuck on NC State for some reason. Let's talk about Miami's offense. Miami comes in, as we said, riding a huge wave of momentum. They seem to have found their quarterback of the future in Alex Van Dyke. They did not score more than 25 points with De'Aaron King as their starter. They have not scored at less than 28 points with Van Dyke as the quarterback, and have scored 31 or more points in their last 4 ACC games, and he is completing 64% of his passes, 15 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. How does FSU start with you, Fish? You know more about Miami than we do. How does FSU corral this offense?
All right, I watched them play NC State live. I went to the game. I went to.
I know you were a closet Hurricane.
Yeah, wherever they play now. I still consider it Joe Robbie Stadium because he's the guy built it with his own money, and that's unheard of these days. But I go to the game. Listen, the kid's super talented. You have to move him off his spot. He is a pocket passer. When he got outside the pocket against NC State, he really struggled to throw the ball. He only scans half the field. I think you could force him into mistakes. I think if FSU could get a pass rush on him, he's not very nimble in that pocket. He's not Tom Brady, where he can just slide up into the pocket, make those throws. If you can cause him to get off his spots, I think you could force him into turnovers.
He is kind of awkwardly athletic, though. He's made some strange plays.
But if you go back, I recommend you go back and watch a little of the NC State game. He struggled when he had to roll outside the pocket. He just isn't as accurate. He doesn't see the field as like there was guys wide open to his left, and he just looked right the whole time. And NC State basically either forced him to throw it out of bounds or forced him to make a bad throw. So I think he's played really well, but as you know, and Mark knows, when more and more teams see film on guys, especially young guys, and you have 3 or 4 games, you start to see some of their tendencies, what they're good at, what they're not good at. I think you could scheme. FSU has to get a lot of pressure. They need to pull some blitzes up the middle, make him feel uncomfortable in that pocket, and force him to make mistakes. And I think it's very possible that happens on Saturday.
So it sounds like what you're saying, when either team throws the ball, we only have to watch half the field.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. You're not going to have to watch the left half of the field. These guys, they only make reads to their right.
He's both going to the right.
Yeah.
All right. Mark, your thoughts on Miami? How much you've seen them? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this might be our best matchup of the game is our defensive line against their offensive line. And so I'm anxious to see, to Fish's point, how we can pressure him, get him off his spot, get him feeling the rush, and maybe bat a few balls down, get in his face, get the crowd involved. I mean, I think that's probably our best matchup. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. The other key is going to be, can we secure that running game with what's his name coming back, the running back?
Brayshawn Ward?
No, mine's
Toafili.
Oh, Toafili.
Toafili hopefully be back.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Miami's running back.
Jalen. Yeah, Knighton's fine. Knighton played last week. He just had a lot of carries. So
okay, so yeah, it's
Jerry and Bob. Any thoughts on the Miami matchup, and also any thoughts from practice the last couple of days?
I would say on the matchup, what Mark said, against NC State, or what Fish said, I thought, could we blitz that kid from NC State and get him out of his rhythm? But he's an experienced quarterback, and I think you got to pick your spots with that kind of a guy. The Miami guy lacks experience. And so maybe blitzes could work against him and not cost you, not bite you. But to me, the key is the same key as every game with us. We just got to play clean on defense. We got to tackle better than we did against NC State. And when we do those things, I think we give ourselves a chance against Miami.
Bob?
I think an interesting storyline is you'll see a lot of Miami kids on that defensive front who will be really fired up. It's going to be guys like Keir Thomas, Malcolm Ray, for example. They're going to play with some more emotion and energy than normal. They know they got to get after the quarterback. They know they got to get him uncomfortable, get him rattled. That was something that Keir Thomas mentioned Tuesday in the morning. And it's a position of depth for Florida State. It's where you got to use those guys, rotate them, keep them energized and after the quarterback. And yeah, hope that he makes some mistakes. He seems, when he's got a clean pocket, that he likes to throw darts, very efficient in that kind of short to intermediate, range passing game. So, and again, to Jerry's point, can't miss tackles. It's got to be a big deal to wrap up over the middle.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, there's no team I like to see Florida State beat more than Miami. It's still my least favorite opponent they ever play. So this is one of my favorite games of the year, and I'm hoping that the boys in Vegas got it wrong and that the Noles will not be a 2.5-point underdog when they play on Saturday. I do want to bring this up. A, it's got Florida State ties. B, it's Miami game. As I mentioned earlier, in 2019, the FSU-Miami game was the make or break game for Willie Taggart. He lost that game and was dismissed after the game, never coached Florida State again. There's been a lot of rumors about Manny Diaz's job security. He is a Florida State grad. It is a Florida State-Miami game. A lot of people are under the impression this is a must-win game for Manny Diaz. Do you agree or disagree with that? And I'll start with you, Fish.
I definitely think it's a big game for him. He was dead man walking 3 weeks ago. That program like you said, the AD was doing tours behind his back and everything, and Manny pulled it together. This game is very, very important for that program. They have to win it. And like I said, I think it's a big game for Mike Norvell. It's a rivalry. Fans always say, listen, you could go 1-12, but if that one win is against the Gators or it's against Miami, people forget. Like, I think a lot of fans, especially for the Florida State fans, will feel a lot better about this season and also the Mike Norvell era if they could come out and pull out a victory on Saturday.
Anybody else want to offer thoughts on Manny and Miami?
Yeah, I think how the game plays out. I think if he loses it bad, he could be problems for him. If it's a close game and we pull it out and he still loses, he might be okay because he's bought himself a little bit with these 3 wins. But if he loses it bad, yeah, he could be in trouble.
I think we're in a spot where every week is a one-game ultimatum about a coach and a program, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. Florida State's in a spot where they haven't beaten a rival in 4 years, and I think Florida State's almost as desperate for this win as Manny Diaz is. You're looking at 2 programs who are unranked. It's been a down year, but it is a game with huge implications for both programs, recruiting implications. And I think both coaches need to sell to their fan bases just what they're doing and that their vision is working, or, on the field, it shows that it isn't working.
Well, and I want to transition to something since you said that. The coaching profession it's never been a stable profession. I mean, never has been at any time that they've started coaching football. It's never been stable. But if I told you, Mark, that you went 72-26 in 8 years as a head coach, and this year you beat Florida State, would you expect to get a raise or be fired?
Depends how much money I'm making.
Well,
right?
You're getting paid to coach. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, but look, let's be honest. These guys are getting paid obscene amounts of money, and with that come obscene expectations, and that's the truth.
The guy I am talking about is head coach John Grass of Jacksonville State, who was let go after this weekend's game by JSU after taking him to the semifinals of SCS last year, in COVID year, no less. 72-26 in almost 8 full seasons, a graduate of the program, and beat Florida State this year, and the gentleman is without a job.
Well, that sounds like some extenuating circumstances.
Yes, exactly.
It's a crazy business. And they're going to FBS in a couple of years, I believe. They just joined the Sun Belt or whatever compilation of teams they're putting together to try to make a conference. All right. A couple other things, then we're going to get out of here. You guys, Jerry, you can partake or not partake. It's up to you.
How did it go last week?
We're doing. We did. I didn't go back and check, but our ACC action for this week.
I took freaking North Carolina. I know that.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. Pitt versus North Carolina. Who wins that game, Fish?
You know, I'm all Pitt this year. I'm riding the Pitt train all the way to the ACC title game. So
yeah, I'm going Pitt over UNC. Jerry?
Yeah. Here's my homework. I did my homework.
All right. So Jerry's not going to be involved in this.
Jerry's
if you're not gonna grade our homework, why in the hell am I doing it?
I know.
Well, that's a good point, but I have an argument for that. Bob, Pitt or UNC?
I mean, Pitt.
Mark?
North Carolina.
All right. I got Syracuse over Louisville. Who you got, Fish?
Oh, God, I'll take Louisville. Syracuse ain't going to win.
Bob?
Yeah, Louisville. It feels like kind of a who cares game, but Louisville.
You sound like Jerry now.
That's most of them, Bob. You can't ride that.
We're going to do the SEC next week just for the hell of it.
Where's it at?
I don't know. I don't care.
At Louisville.
At Louisville? I'll take Louisville.
I got Louisville too.
All right, I got Boston College over Georgia Tech, particularly since they got Jerkovic back at quarterback.
I got Georgia Tech. I thought they played Miami pretty good.
Where's the game at?
I don't know.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, you know what? God, this is not for gambling purposes. So if anybody's listening, no, I'm just saying that people that are listening this
for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah. I would even touch this game if I was in Vegas. I'll go with I'll go with Georgia Tech. They're at home, but I'm biting my tongue on that one.
My next pick is going to shock most everybody.
Oh,
I am picking Duke over Virginia Tech.
Oh my God. You got big
offense is moving the ball a little bit these days.
You got a bigger set than I do. I'm taking Virginia Tech. There's no way I'm touching freaking Duke's terrible. They're the worst team in the ACC.
Game is at Blacksburg, by the way.
I don't care where they could play in a garbage can. I don't care.
Virginia Tech is.
They could play that thing down the street in Durham, wherever they want. Freaking, I ain't touching Duke.
Who else got the Hokies?
I got the Hokies.
Mark?
Yeah, I'll take the Hokies.
He's checking the point spread right now.
No.
All right. In a pick that really, really does break my heart to make, I love Dave Clawson. I've been on the Wake bandwagon all season long, but I can't see the trees for the forest this time. I'm going NC State over Wake Forest. What y'all got?
I just think Wake's a really good football team this year. I'm going to take Wake Forest. I'm riding Wake and Pitt all the way to the conference championship game until they're eliminated, either or both or whatever. So I'm going to take Wake Forest.
Yeah, I'm going Wake too. I think NC State's a little full of themselves a little bit.
Yeah,
I got Wake, but how in the world does Wake give up 58 points?
Well, they gave up 60 to somebody earlier too. Like I think it was Army.
It's called Wake. They are still Wake Forest. They are capable of doing that. All right.
And did they have some injuries or players not playing in that Carolina game?
They're called Wake Forest. They can do this at times.
That's what.
I'm just assuming right now that everybody has the flu.
Nah, listen,
It's rampant everywhere.
Clausen's great, but that team doesn't they don't have a ton of depth. So I'm sure if they get in a shootout, they're going to get worn out. So that's what happened last week. I picked North Carolina last week, so I'm happy with what happened. But
all right, and I'm assuming that we all have Notre Dame over Virginia and Clemson over UConn. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, UConn is officially the worst team outside of UMass in Division I football.
All right, and then in an unexpected change, since the college football playoff polls are coming out, I've got my top 4: Georgia, Oklahoma, Oregon, Cincinnati, in that order. Who do you guys have as your playoff 4 after Week 10?
Georgia's number 1, Oregon 2. I just can't put Cincinnati in the top 4. I'll put Alabama and there's Georgia, Oregon, Alabama.
There's a lot of teams. Ohio State, Notre Dame.
I'll put
Michigan State.
I'll put Ohio State. I just Cincinnati. I think if they played one of the top 4 teams, would get beat. But that's just my opinion.
They beat Notre Dame.
That's great. They didn't beat freaking Alabama or one of the other top 4 teams.
They haven't played Alabama. Let's just follow up.
We almost beat Florida. Florida State almost beat them. So.
Who? Notre Dame?
Notre Dame. All right. So it's they're a good team this year, but they're flawed. So.
Well, we're talking about flawed football teams. Come on. All right. Mark, who you got in your top 4?
Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama.
Jerry, we're not talking just about ACC, though.
I got them: Georgia, Oregon, Alabama, Ohio State.
Bob?
Yeah, I think the gap between Georgia, Alabama, and everybody else is pretty big. But I'd go with the same 4.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all joining us tonight. I appreciate our Osceola subscribers and Seminole Sidelines podcast listeners for tuning in. If you are not a member of the Osceola or subscriber to the Osceola, please give us a chance. Go to theosceola.com, click on the subscription tab, and go to the discount code field and enter FSU20, FSU20 to get 20% off our annual subscription rate of $74.95. And if you would like to try a monthly subscription, we have a monthly subscription for $6.95. Would like to thank Alumni Hall for sponsoring Seminole Sidelines podcast, and we will be back with you next week to talk about the FSU-Miami game and move forward as they move forward to Boston College. And guys, I appreciate you joining me. And Mark, will you please sign us off?
Help them.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!